Hi, welcome back. Today we're diving into 4 Halloween cases, so turn the lights off and let's step into the cases.
Chapter 1. The Real Candyman.
Our first story takes us back to Halloween night in 1974, right here in Houston, Texas. It was a night filled with excitement and childhood wonder, but it would soon become one of the most chilling moments in Halloween history. This is the story of Ronald Clark O'Brien, the man who would become infamously known as the Candyman. On that fateful Halloween, O'Brien poisoned pixie sticks with cyanide and handed them out to unsuspecting children, including his own. His son, 8-year-old Timothy, would become the only victim to consume the deadly treat. But behind this horrifying act lay something even darker, a plot born from greed and desperation. O'Brien was drowning in financial debt, overwhelmed by unpaid loans and the fear of bankruptcy. To escape his financial ruin, he saw an opportunity to profit from an insurance payout, at the expense of his own child. In the months leading up to Halloween, O'Brien had quietly taken out life insurance policies on his 2 children, Timothy and his 5-year-old daughter Elizabeth. These policies amounted to more than $60,000, a substantial sum in 1974. It was a premeditated plan, fueled by cold, calculated greed, to use the one night of the year when children were expected to trust strangers handing out candy. That Halloween evening, O'Brien took his children trick-or-treating alongside a neighbor and his family. Among the candies they collected were 5 pixie sticks, long tubes of flavored sugar. But these particular pixie sticks weren't the fun, sugary treat that children expected. O'Brien had laced them with cyanide, one of the most lethal substances on Earth. He handed out the tampered pixie sticks to his own children and a few other neighborhood kids, hoping that the chaos of Halloween would make the deaths seem random and unrelated to him. Later that night, when they returned home, Timothy asked for a treat from his Halloween haul before going to bed. Like many children, he reached for the familiar pixie sticks. The moment he consumed the poisoned candy, he complained to his father about its bitter taste. In an effort to disguise his involvement, O'Brien handed Timothy a glass of Kool-Aid to wash away the unpleasant flavor. Within minutes, the cyanide began to take effect. Timothy collapsed and started convulsing, his body violently reacting to the poison. He was rushed to the hospital, but tragically, Timothy died en route. His last words were a plea to his father, "Daddy, I don't feel good." The sudden, mysterious death of an 8-year-old boy sent shockwaves through the community. Parents immediately feared the worst, that their children too had been given poisoned candy. The neighborhood was in a state of panic as families rushed to the hospital to have their children's candy tested. In a tense race against time, police scoured the area and recovered the remaining poisoned pixie sticks from the other children, none of whom had eaten them yet, likely saving their lives. As police began their investigation, they quickly turned their attention to O'Brien. What they uncovered was a twisted tale of deceit and greed. The cyanide-laced pixie sticks had been stapled shut, a minor detail that would prove crucial in raising suspicions. At first, O'Brien attempted to maintain his innocence, claiming that someone in the neighborhood had given out the poisoned candy. But his story began to fall apart when police discovered that none of the homes visited that night had handed out pixie sticks, except for O'Brien himself. And then, more damning evidence began to surface. Investigators learned that O'Brien had been asking co-workers about where to buy cyanide in the weeks leading up to Halloween. Even more disturbingly, he had attempted to purchase cyanide from a local chemical supply store, though he left empty-handed when he couldn't buy the quantity he requested. It wasn't long before detectives began piecing together the horrific truth. O'Brien had not only poisoned his son but had planned to kill other children to obscure his real target and collect on the insurance money. O'Brien's trial became a national spectacle, captivating audiences with the sheer brazenness and cruelty of his actions. How could a father, the one person meant to protect and love his children, commit such a horrific act? As the trial unfolded, more evidence came to light. O'Brien had not only taken out life insurance policies on his children earlier that year but had also doubled down just days before Halloween. His wife, who was completely unaware of these policies, was devastated by the betrayal. O'Brien's defense tried to argue that he had no role in the poisoning and that the pixie sticks could have been handed out by someone else. But the evidence was overwhelming. The stapled pixie sticks, the recent insurance policies, the inquiries about cyanide, it all pointed to O'Brien as the orchestrator of this tragic event. Witnesses, including O'Brien's co-workers and chemical supply store employees, testified about his strange behavior in the weeks leading up to the crime. The jury was horrified by the details, and it took them only 46 minutes to reach a guilty verdict. In 1975, Ronald Clark O'Brien was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. Nearly a decade later, on March 31, 1984, his execution by lethal injection was carried out in Texas. O'Brien maintained his innocence until the very end, but the evidence spoke louder than his final pleas. His death brought a form of closure to those whose lives had been shattered by his actions, but the legacy of what he did still lingers. The Candyman case changed Halloween forever. The once carefree holiday where children could roam the streets collecting candy with pure excitement was now tainted by fear. Parents began inspecting every piece of candy their children brought home, terrified of the possibility that it could be poison. Communities started enforcing curfews, and some even banned trick-or-treating altogether in the years that followed. Urban legends about tainted Halloween candy took on new life, even though the O'Brien case remained one of the only documented incidents of a parent intentionally poisoning their child's candy. Yet, despite the rarity of such occurrences, the fear persists. To this day, many parents across America still inspect their children's Halloween haul, an eerie reminder of the night when Ronald O'Brien turned a beloved tradition into a nightmare. As we look back, we're reminded of the vulnerability and trust that Halloween embodies and how one man shattered that trust forever. Ronald O'Brien's actions were driven by selfishness and greed, but their consequences reached far beyond his immediate circle. They reverberated through neighborhoods, towns, and eventually the entire nation. The fear he instilled became a cultural phenomenon, turning a simple act of giving candy into an act of wariness and suspicion. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the real monsters aren't the ones in masks. They're the ones standing right beside us, hidden in plain sight.
Chapter 2: The Ghost of Deer Island.
Our next story takes us to the quiet, mysterious shores of Deer Island, Mississippi, where local legend tells of a headless pirate ghost who has haunted the island for over 2 centuries. This island, just off the coast of Biloxi, is a small and uninhabited landmass, dense with forests and marshland. It's the kind of place that seems tailor-made for ghost stories. But the legend that surrounds this island isn't just any ghost story, it's the chilling tale of betrayal, greed, and a restless spirit searching for justice, or perhaps vengeance. The story of the headless pirate of Deer Island dates back to the early 1800s, when Jean Lafitte's infamous crew of pirates roamed the Gulf Coast. According to local lore, one of Lafitte's crew members dared to steal a portion of the treasure they had buried on Deer Island. For this betrayal, his fellow pirates beheaded him and left his body to rot on the island, while they took the treasure and fled. But as with many tales of stolen loot and betrayal, the story did not end there. Fishermen and island visitors soon began reporting sightings of a mysterious, headless figure wandering the shores at night, as though searching for something, or perhaps someone. The figure was said to appear most often in the thick, swirling fog that often blankets the island. It would carry a lantern, casting a faint glow as it moved silently through the mist, with the eerie sound of clinking chains following behind it. Sometimes people reported hearing low, mournful moans, ghostly cries that seemed to echo across the water. The legend said that the headless pirate was doomed to roam the island, guarding the treasure he had stolen and forever searching for his missing head. Through the years, the legend of the headless pirate has only grown. Many locals claim to have had their own encounters with the ghostly figure. Some report seeing a man dressed in old-fashioned pirate clothing, wandering the island as if lost. Others hear strange, unexplainable noises at night, chains dragging through the dirt or muffled footsteps in the marsh. These eerie occurrences have kept the legend alive in local folklore, with stories being passed down through generations. What makes this story so captivating is that the island itself, with its isolation and mysterious atmosphere, seems like the perfect backdrop for such an unsettling presence. Deer Island has always been a place of intrigue, but it wasn't until recent years that paranormal investigators began to take a deeper interest in the legend of the headless pirate. Intrigued by the stories and eager to capture evidence of the supernatural, several paranormal teams have visited the island with equipment such as EVP, electronic voice phenomena, recorders, thermal cameras, and other ghost hunting devices. Some claim to have captured disembodied voices on audio, with whispers that seem to repeat phrases like "my head" or "the treasure." Other investigators report seeing strange apparitions, a figure drifting in the distance, only to vanish moments later. Skeptics dismiss these encounters as mere tricks of the mind or products of the island's hauntingly atmospheric setting, but for the believers, these experiences are proof that the ghost of the headless pirate still haunts the shores. Despite the skepticism, the allure of Deer Island's haunted reputation continues to draw visitors from all over, particularly during the Halloween season. Many thrill seekers make the trip to explore the island and try to catch a glimpse of the ghostly pirate themselves. Some go out in small boats under the cover of night, navigating through the shallow waters that surround the island, hoping to hear the clinking of chains or catch sight of a faint lantern light moving through the mist. Others simply want to experience the eerie atmosphere that Deer Island has become famous for. As with many ghost stories, it's hard to separate fact from fiction. But one thing is clear: the legend of the Headless Pirate has woven itself into the very fabric of Mississippi's coastal folklore. Whether or not the ghost of Deer Island truly exists, the stories continue to captivate the imaginations of locals and visitors alike. It's a reminder that some tales, especially those rooted in betrayal and unfinished business, never really die. They linger, just like the ghost that supposedly still roams Deer Island, forever guarding his treasure and searching for his lost head. The story of the Headless Pirate of Deer Island is more than just a ghost story. It's a tale of betrayal, greed, and a restless spirit forever trapped between this world and the next. As the fog rolls over the island and the waves gently lap against the shore, we're left wondering, is it just a story, or is the ghost of Deer Island still out there, waiting, searching, and haunting the place where his life and head were taken so long ago?
Chapter 3: The Witches of Pendle Hill.
Our third story takes us deep into the heart of England, to a place both feared and revered for its dark and haunted history, Pendle Hill in Lancashire. The hill and the surrounding area became infamous for being the setting of one of the most notorious witch trials in British history, the Pendle Witch Trials of 1612. The trials resulted in the execution of 10 people, and the chilling legacy of this event has cast a long, eerie shadow over the region ever since. But what exactly happened here, and how did a small, remote community come to be at the center of such a notorious witch hunt? Pendle Hill itself is a striking feature of the landscape, rising above the rural countryside of Lancashire in the Forest of Bowland. The hill is part of an area of outstanding natural beauty, a serene yet isolated place with sweeping views of the surrounding villages and forests. Its towering presence and the eerie quiet that often settles over it give Pendle Hill a mystical, almost supernatural air. In the early 17th century, the villages surrounding this imposing hill were small, tightly knit communities where superstitions ran deep, and beliefs in the supernatural were a part of everyday life. At the center of this story are two rival families, the Demdikes and the Chattoxes. These families were known throughout the region for their practices of folk magic and herbal medicine, which were common in many rural areas at the time. The Demdike matriarch, Elizabeth Southerns, better known as Old Demdike, was reputed to be a healer with a deep knowledge of medicinal herbs. However, the line between healer and witch was thin, and as fear and suspicion grew in the region, that distinction would no longer matter. The Chattoxes, led by Anne Whittle, were also accused of practicing witchcraft, and it was the rivalry between these two families that would light the fuse for what was to come. The spark that ignited the Pendle Witch Trials came from a seemingly small incident. In March of 1612, a young girl named Alison Device, the granddaughter of Old Demdike, was traveling near Cone when she encountered a peddler named John Law. Alison, whether in jest or frustration, cursed the peddler, and soon afterward, Law collapsed, stricken with what was described as a stroke. Alison was quickly accused of witchcraft, and her arrest set off a chain of events that would lead to one of the most infamous witch trials in England. Alison was brought before the local magistrate, Roger Noel, and under questioning she confessed to having bewitched John Law. But the confession did not end there. Alison, likely under pressure, accused other members of her family of practicing witchcraft, including her grandmother Old Demdike. Soon, her accusations spread to include members of the rival Chattox family, with whom the Demdikes had long feuded. What followed was a web of accusations, confessions, and denials, as both the Demdikes and the Chattoxes accused each other of witchcraft, each claim more damning than the last. The case took a chilling turn when a young girl, Janet Device, the 9-year-old sister of Alison, was brought to testify. In a shocking move, Janet gave evidence against her own family, naming her mother, brother, and sister as witches. Her testimony, given in court, was considered highly unusual, as children were not typically allowed to testify in trials. Yet, her words were taken as fact, and they played a pivotal role in securing the convictions of many of the accused. The trials themselves were little more than a formality. The evidence against the accused witches was largely based on hearsay, rumors, and confessions obtained under duress. Many of the confessions were coerced, and accusations of witchcraft often relied on vague claims, such as the presence of a witch mark on the body or the alleged use of familiar spirits, animals believed to assist witches in their spells. Old Demdike, who was over 80 years old and in failing health, died in prison before the trial even took place. The rest of the accused, however, faced their fates in the courtroom. In August 1612, the Pendle witches were brought to trial at Lancaster Castle. The court heard the testimony of Janet Device, along with the confessions and accusations that had been gathered during the investigation. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, 10 of the accused were found guilty of witchcraft and sentenced to death by hanging. The executions were carried out on August 20, 1612, in a grim spectacle that was witnessed by large crowds. The Pendle witch trials have since become one of the most famous witch hunts in British history, and the story has endured for centuries, leaving a dark legacy that continues to captivate people to this day. The fear, ignorance, and superstition that led to the trials are a haunting reminder of how quickly paranoia can spread, and how dangerous it can be when accusations are accepted without question. But the story of Pendle Hill doesn't end with the executions. Over the years, many people have claimed to experience strange and unsettling occurrences in the area. Pendle Hill is now known as one of the most haunted places in England, with frequent reports of paranormal activity. Locals and visitors alike have reported seeing ghostly apparitions on the hill, shadowy figures in old-fashioned clothing, believed to be the spirits of the accused witches. These apparitions are often seen near the sites where the accused lived or were said to have practiced their magic. Some have also reported hearing eerie, disembodied voices on the winds that sweep over Pendle Hill, as well as sudden drops in temperature that leave even the most skeptical visitors chilled to the bone. During the Halloween season, Pendle Hill becomes a popular destination for those interested in the paranormal. Ghost tours and witch hunts are organized, allowing thrill seekers to explore the haunted landscape and delve into the dark history of the area. Paranormal investigators have taken a special interest in Pendle Hill, using modern equipment to try and capture evidence of the spirits said to linger in the area. Some have reported capturing strange, inexplicable phenomena on camera, such as flickering lights in the distance or misty figures that vanish as quickly as they appear. Others have claimed to record EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, capturing voices that seem to echo from the past, whispering words that can't be explained. Whether these experiences are real or simply products of the imagination, the reputation of Pendle Hill as a place of supernatural activity continues to grow. Today, the Pendle witch trials are remembered not only for the injustice that was done but also as a symbol of the dangers of mass hysteria, scapegoating, and the persecution of those who were different or misunderstood. The area around Pendle Hill may be beautiful and peaceful by day, but as the sun sets and the mist begins to roll over the landscape, the weight of its dark history becomes impossible to ignore. The story of the Pendle witches serves as a grim reminder of how fear and superstition can destroy lives, and how the echoes of those injustices can be felt even centuries later. Pendle Hill remains a powerful symbol of this tragic history, drawing countless visitors each year who are eager to learn about the infamous witch trials and perhaps experience a brush with the supernatural themselves. Whether or not the spirits of the Pendle witches truly haunt the hill, their story continues to captivate the imagination, serving as a stark reminder of the cost of fear, ignorance, and prejudice.
Chapter 4: The Mystery of the Poison Candy.
Finally, we venture into a chilling Halloween urban legend that has stirred fear in communities for decades: the unsettling possibility of tainted Halloween treats. Stories of candy laced with poison or razor blades hidden in apples have long circulated, clouding the fun of trick-or-treating with a shadow of fear. While many of these tales have been dismissed as myths, a few real incidents stand out, reminding us that sometimes the line between urban legend and reality blurs. One of the earliest and most notorious cases occurred in 1959 in California. A dentist named William Shine decided to play a twisted prank on local trick-or-treaters. Instead of handing out harmless sweets, he distributed candy-coated laxatives, a dangerous trick that left several children suffering from severe gastrointestinal issues. Shine's actions, while not as sinister as poison, still had serious consequences for the kids involved. His prank quickly turned into a criminal offense, and he faced legal charges for endangering the health of children. This case is one of the few documented examples of Halloween candy being intentionally tampered with, igniting fears that would resonate for years to come. A few years later, in the 1960s, another bizarre case added to the growing list of Halloween horror stories. A woman from Long Island named Helen File handed out bags containing dog biscuits, steel wool, and ant poison to young trick-or-treaters. File later claimed that her actions were meant to protest the commercialization of Halloween, but her reckless behavior put countless children at risk. Parents were horrified, and File was swiftly arrested and charged with endangering the welfare of children. Although no one was harmed, the sheer audacity of her actions reinforced growing concerns about the safety of Halloween treats. These rare but disturbing incidents have left an indelible mark on Halloween traditions. They have fueled parental fears and created a heightened awareness about the importance of inspecting Halloween candy. The urban legends of poison candy and other tampered treats may be mostly fiction, but the few real-life cases serve as stark reminders of the potential dangers. As a result, many families now take extra precautions, thoroughly checking their children's candy before allowing them to indulge. The fear surrounding Halloween treats has not only affected family practices but also changed how communities celebrate the holiday. In recent years, more and more neighborhoods have turned to alternative forms of trick-or-treating like trunk-or-treat events. These gatherings, often held in church or school parking lots, allow children to collect candy from the trunks of cars in a monitored, controlled environment. Community centers and schools also frequently host Halloween parties, offering a safe space for children to enjoy the festivities without the lurking threat of tampered candy. While the vast majority of stories about poison Halloween treats are rooted in myth and rumor, the few documented cases have had a lasting effect. These incidents remind us of the importance of safety and vigilance, ensuring that Halloween remains a joyful and safe celebration for children and families alike. Even in the face of fear, Halloween continues to thrive, with communities coming together to make sure the holiday remains as fun and magical as it was always meant to be. As we conclude our exploration of these haunting tales, it's essential to remember that while Halloween is a time for fun, treats, and spookiness, it also serves as a reminder of the darker side of human nature and the chilling stories that can emerge from it. From the tragic case of the Candyman to the ghostly legends of Deer Island and the unsettling truths behind poison candy, each story highlights the importance of awareness, vigilance, and community. Halloween offers a unique opportunity to confront our fears and share tales that have shaped our understanding of this enigmatic holiday. Whether you're out trick-or-treating, attending a ghost tour, or simply enjoying the festivities, remember to keep the spirit of safety and camaraderie alive.